I have been working in the NHS now for almost 4 years, and every time I usually come back to give you an update how I'm still feeling after working in a care home for a few years and now working in the NHS, just so it helps you make informed decision. Please note, I'm not trying to compare or tell you one is better than the other. It doesn't matter. You may start from the care home, you may start from the NHS. At the end of the day, you are still a registered nurse, and this is going to be determined by what opportunity you have or your preferences. So no nurse is more important than the other. You are still a registered nurse, but I'm just going to be giving you some of the advantages or some of the things I've seen starting with the NHS, and please stay around enough to hear the advantages as well in a care home. One of the things I'm going to talk about is the politics. When I was in a care home, I actually did not have the best experience. I've shared this video multiple times, especially my first care home. I called it my co-workers were like co-workers from hell, and I'm not afraid to say it. I had a very bad experience. This may not be the same for you. Some of you may start in a care home where you actually have better experience, just like I had in my second care home. My second care home was way better. I loved it. When I left that care home, I cried. I cried. The politics in the NHS is not as intense, it's not as hard as it is in a care home, because I feel like the care home is a small, confined place where everybody knows everybody. In the NHS, there's still a little bit of variety. You're mixing with nurses, doctors, physiotherapists, occupational therapists. You have so many other aspects of health care that you're actually interacting with, so you're not closed or closed in one small space. It is easy to have 2 to 3 nurses on shift with you. If one is not flowing with you, you flow with the other person. Unlike in a care home where maybe you have one other nurse on your floor, or you're actually the only one with 4 carers who you have to manage, who you have to work with. And if they don't like you, or if your manager don't like you, or if one of the nurses on duty, especially if they have an upper hand over you, if they don't like you, I think that is you're screwed. You're going to have a difficult time. So the politics in the hospital, I think, is not as much, it's not as intense, it's not as obvious, it's not as choking as it is in a care home. If you see me looking down, that's because I have it written down so I don't forget. One other thing you're going to love about the NHS is the training. I personally think I struggled a little bit with getting help with training, just because, for instance, when it was time for catheterization or PVCs, the deputy manager or the manager would then decide on who deserves to go for what, because apparently, I don't know, for some weird reason, they just were not allowing everybody to go for all the trainings. Unlike in the NHS, where everybody is pushed as much as possible. In fact, most of the hours, especially in my unit, get paid for. In the care home, you have to go for those trainings maybe during your off days, or even if you go for the training within your work period. Limited spaces are available. Sometimes you may have to go to other NHS trusts to get few trainings, and some of those trainings you may never use. Imagine getting trained for IVs, which you may never even have the opportunity to set up in a care home. So you have more advantage over somebody who is in a care home with trainings. You get pushed every now and again. I just did my revalidation again in the NHS, and let me tell you, it was way easy. Those points that you need to have your revalidation, those CPD courses, I had way over. I couldn't even use 1/10 of the training hours I had inquired in the last 3 years. So it is a lot of training and it's a lot of push. Usually if you're taking advantage of the system, taking advantage of the opportunity, putting yourself forward, don't be lazy, don't feel intimidated by anybody. In the NHS, I think there are loads of areas and loads of trainings that you could get if you are actually really interested. Another thing I think about is the tendency for promotion. Although in the care home, you can also get promoted to the deputy manager or become the manager. In the NHS, there's opportunity for you to become the band 6. And I know it's politics, it's a lot of work that goes into it, but you still have more tendency. Say in one unit, you may have 2 to 3 band 6s, unlike in a care home that you have maybe 1, maximum 2, depending on the facility and the capacity. So there's a little bit of more room for you to be able to promote to that level 6 or level 7, or even become the manager if you want in the NHS compared to it is in the care home, just because of the availability of space and your ability to quickly work your way up. That being said, I know so many nurses who are doing great. In fact, some people within 2 years of working in a care home, I see that they became a a deputy manager or even a manager. I've seen it. So don't be limited by what I am saying. And one thing I've also appreciated about NHS is the work flexibility, in the sense that I know in the care home I was able to work around my shift because I know specific days I work and my husband can work around me. And if it's not convenient, sometimes you can easily tell your manager, look, this day is not convenient for me. But the problem there is you don't have as much nurses as you have in the NHS. In the NHS, for instance, I work in the ICU. We are over 80 nurses. So there's more room for me. I'm not speaking for the people in the ward, but I'm thinking you have more room to say, look, please, this shift. In fact, we have a WhatsApp group where if this shift doesn't work for you, you can just post it there and say, please, can somebody switch for this shift because it doesn't suit my work or my life. And 9 out of 10, you get somebody who is going to switch it for you. Or you can easily go to the nurse in charge of band 6 or whatever and say, look, please, this shift, can I get it switched? And if it's convenient for the unit, you can get it switched. And the fact that you can get loads of, I know so many people, parents, mothers who works specific days. Some works just Friday, Saturday, Sundays, or some work 22 hours. I personally reduced my hours a lot because I just didn't want to just work because I was getting too exhausted. In the care home, especially, I know if you're on a visa, you cannot be as much flexible, but I feel like in the NHS, there are people who even work 1 day a week. Once you have the ability to, you're not restricted by your visa, it is very flexible. Unlike in the care home, I think the care home will struggle if a nurse or if most of the nurses decide, oh, we're gonna work 1 or 2 days a week, because you have to fill in those spaces. In the care home, you may have 2 to 3 nurses on shift. How easy is it for you to then switch? Unlike a unit where you have 10 nurses on one shift, I think it's easier to have. It's not the same in the world. So please just remember that I'm just speaking from my own point of view. One other thing I think is very beneficial working in the NHS is the pension scheme. I think NHS has one of the most robust pension scheme, in the sense that you pay some percentage based on your income, you pay some percentage, and the NHS add on top of that some percentage. And at the end of the day, by the grace of God, if we live long enough to actually cash out this pension, it is meant to be really good. I know some of my colleagues who have started the NHS, who have been in the NHS for years. Some of them are talking about retiring at some specific age, retiring early, but for us, unfortunately, we have to work 2 years. But if God keeps us alive and we are still alive until then, I think it's a good thing, because the pension is really good. Although the care home also has its own pension, they don't add as much as the NHS does. So NHS has one of the best pension schemes that I know personally. Another opportunity you're going to get as an NHS nurse is the internal job vacancy. So there are times when jobs become available and it is advertised internally first before somebody who is outside. So for instance, you're in a unit, you don't like it, say you're in theaters and you don't like it, you want to go to dialysis, you want to go ICU, there will advertisement that will be placed, and because of course, number one, you're already in the system, you're going to see it first. If you're interested, you have upper chance compared to somebody who is coming from outside. So there's opportunity for you to move around the hospital. If you don't like ICU, you can go to dialysis. If you don't like dialysis, you can go to enterology, you can go to urology, you can go to renal, you can do anything you want to do. That is why I think nurses were actually very advantaged, because if you don't like this, you can do that. If you don't like that, you can do this. Unlike in the care home, if you don't like your job as a nurse, what can you do in the care home? Apart from leave or become a band 6, what can you do? You cannot just get angry and become the domestic. But that being said, the care home is still a very good place to start. From my own point of view, that was where I started, and it has grounded me. Especially since I live in Scotland, it helped me to understand how the Scottish people think, talk, and do things. Even some of the food I learned was from the care home. I know loads of Scottish food, and it's because we used to serve it and help residents, feed them with those foods. So yes, I think I had my routine and even the Scottish accent, because it's very difficult. I learned it from working in a care home, which I would have still had the opportunity to learn in the hospital, but it wouldn't have been as intense, as master class as it was in the care home. Another thing I also think is the ability for you to use those advantages that you've got, the trainings, the work experience abroad. Say you want to move to the US, it is sweeter. Sounds better if you say I've worked in a so bedded hospital. That being said, I'm not saying if you're in a care home you cannot migrate. I'm just saying, depending on what you want to do in the other country that you're going, your work experience obviously in the NHS is going to give you a little bit of an edge. I'm not condemning the care home, please, but If you want to move abroad again, or you want to move abroad, it's going to help you say, look, I've worked in a 500-bedded hospital. Some places will even ask that you work in a hospital before they are able to employ you in other countries or before you get your licensing. I've talked about ability to switch between wards, between specialities, between skill sets, between places, between anything. One disadvantage I don't like about my unit is the fact that we get moved all the time. I don't like it. I can never like it. I've never been a ward nurse. I've never worked in the ward. So the fact that I have to move here and there, some of you may be lucky that you don't have to move, but in the place where I work, I will have to move all the time. If we don't have patients, I have to move to a ward that needs me. It can be A&E, it can be AU1, it could be anywhere. It could be renal, it could be 6 ward, whatever, elderly, endocrine, nobody cares. Apparently, if you're an ICU nurse, you're supposed to be able to work everywhere. Who said that? Who brought that law? So yes, I doubt about the NHS. I do not like it. The fact that we have to move. So please, if you are in authority and you watch this video, tell them to stop it. I'm just joking. Now, let us talk about some of the advantages I think you're going to benefit if you work in a care home. Number one is going to be the small community. I feel like in a care home, there's a little bit of small community sense. Everybody knows everybody. We work like a small team. That is if you're on a good side with them. If you're not on a good side with them, that small team is going to be the beginning of your downfall. So I think working in the care home give you a sense of working in a small safe zone. Another thing you can also do is working in a care home can help you feel like you're the boss. You know what I mean? For instance, it doesn't matter how many years you worked in the care home. Once you start in the NHS, you're starting at the bottom band. Depending on how you're able to negotiate. I've seen people who started in the middle or at the top, but most time, especially for me, I started at the bottom. It is very easy for you to feel, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. People have been here, they have this experience, 10 years, 20 years. Even though you've been a nurse for 50 years, the day you go to the NHS and you've never worked in the NHS before is the day you're starting, you see. So you feel a little bit intimidated, whereas in the care home, it is easy for you to fit in. You may be the only nurse on your floor or the second nurse on your floor. You get along, you have this small community of people who wait and listen and do the things you tell them to do, if you're lucky. But in the NHS, look, most people, like, you feel like everybody's telling you what to do, because you have doctors, consultants, other nurses who are more experienced than you, band 6, band 7, band 8. So it is easy for you to feel small, feel like you don't know what you're doing, but you're going to get there. But in the care home, you have this small group and a good sense of small community. Another thing is also flexibility. Like I said, in the care home, in the hospital, it is also possible for you to have that flexibility in the care home. If you're able to plan and have your days set, let your manager know that these days and that day work for me, and also be very considerate of the need or the requirement or whatever your shortage or you're not being able to work is going to cause in the care home. You can also talk to your manager, if you're on the good side, to help you switch your shifts. I think the care home, when I left the care home as well, one of the things that I wasn't very happy with the NHS was my salary drop, because when I was in the care home, my salary at the time, I think my highest was about £18 something. I then went from that to starting at a £13 in the hospital. So that salary drop was a lot of drop. It was like, whew, drop. And then to even climb up, I went to work in dialysis outpatient, meaning we don't do Sunday shifts, we don't do night, we only do twilight, which finishes at 12 o'clock, and it's just 3 days a week, which means it may only become your turn maybe twice in a whole month. You see, so I had a big salary drop from £18 to £13. It was a bit of a shock, and the fact that I was on a wrong tax code, emergency tax code, when I joined the NHS as well, it was like, is it even worth it? I didn't even know how I survived those days. I was as broke. I was only managing to pay my bills. I was broke, but over time, and it grew. You get those increment that comes with how long you've worked in the NHS. Luckily, there's been a lot of debate about salary, and I've been one of the beneficiaries of those that had at least £1 added to their salary per hour. You see, so it is something. The good salary in the care home is something that I commend, because most people, I've heard of nurses that start with even £20 per hour. Please don't quote me on this. Some people start with 14, 15, depends. And please don't convert, because the way you hear the money is the way you hear the expenses. Please don't go and be converted, especially if you're not in the UK. You're not going to understand. The If you love dementia care, if you love elderly care, if you're compassionate enough to listen to what they say, to learn from them, to care for them, I think you're going to love the care home, because you have people who are going to be demented, who are going to be elderly, unable to do things, and it's just nothing is still nothing. You just have to care about not just their physical body, but their mental health, their family, and it's a lot of family paperwork as well that goes in a care home. So I think if you love dementia care, you're going to love the care home. And one point I also listed is you have a tendency to also become a deputy manager, because I know a lady who I think she came after me even, and before I knew it, within a year or so, she was already the deputy manager in a care home. So if you have that balls and it's a thing for you, go for it. You can easily go to the stage of becoming a deputy manager, and even, who knows, have your own care home or have your own care service or whatever you call it by yourself. You can get that experience and then have your own care home or have your own service or care company. These are the few things I think are the advantages in both the NHS and the care home, and things you should consider. But please remember, start from wherever you want to start from and build your way up or down or wherever, or middle to wherever you want to go. This sky is your limit. Nothing can stop you. As long as you start, as long as you're in the country, that is the most important thing. So don't ask me which one is better, which I should I start. Some of you will not get a job in the NHS, and it's fine. Start in the care home. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You are still a registered nurse, and nobody is going to fault you for that. Thank you so much for watching. You remember, my name is Gloria Otika. I'm your humble baby girl. Please remember to like my page, subscribe. It sounds like I just say this for fun, but please, we're supposed to have grown more than this. I know I'm not that consistent on this channel for so many personal and unavoidable reasons, but I love you. I think about you. I feel good when I don't come here, but when I come and I make a video, I also feel very discouraged when I go and get as good view as I thought I should. I know you don't owe me anything, but I appreciate if you just please share my videos, subscribe, and drop a comment. It really keeps me going. Thank you so much for your love. Thank you for your support always. I still remain Gloria Otika.